the photographers and the journalists to tell them where she would be and when she could be spotted. So she encouraged the paparazzi.
Tom Bower has just announced that he's writing a second book about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, and the timing couldn't be more significant. The investigative journalist, often called the Witchfinder General of biographers,
in the hope that somebody will come along and say there's money in this, let's support Meghan and her as ever brand,
first took on the Sussexes in 2022 with his international bestseller, Revenge. That book featured testimony from 80 sources and became a #1 hit across multiple countries. Now, in February 2026, Bower confirmed he's back with a sequel, and this time he says he's got material they simply can't spin away. What makes this announcement particularly noteworthy is the context in which it arrives. When Bower's first book was released, Meghan and Harry still had active streaming deals with major platforms and a network of Hollywood supporters willing to defend them publicly. They were positioned as a power couple with unlimited potential in the entertainment industry. The situation today looks dramatically different. Meghan's podcast venture has essentially disappeared from the charts. After Spotify terminated their partnership, the content she produced faced widespread criticism for its approach and execution. Her lifestyle brand launch, American Riviera Orchard, has been met with questions about its actual success, despite initial claims of products selling out. The Netflix cooking series, With Love Meghan, received poor reviews from critics who noted that much of the content seemed to focus more on Meghan herself than on the actual cooking or her guests. In one particularly criticized interview segment with tennis champion Serena Williams, viewers pointed out that the first 11 minutes centered on Meghan rather than on Williams' remarkable career achievements. Industry observers have noted a pattern in how these projects have been received. There appears to be a growing sense of fatigue with what some perceive as a continuous focus on victimhood and personal grievances. While American culture has often shown sympathy for those who have faced genuine hardship, multiple commentators have suggested that the public has reached a saturation point with the Sussex narrative. The constant emphasis on their struggles, combined with their obvious wealth and privilege, has created what some see as a disconnect between their message and their reality. This cultural shift became impossible to ignore when South Park entered the conversation. In February 2023, the animated series aired an episode titled The Worldwide Privacy Tour, and it marked a turning point in how Meghan and Harry were discussed in popular culture. South Park has always been known for its sharp social commentary, and the show's creators clearly saw something worth satirizing in the couple's approach to public life. The episode didn't pull any punches. It featured cartoon versions of a prince and his American wife who claimed to desperately want privacy while simultaneously going on a worldwide tour to promote that very desire for privacy. The contradiction at the heart of their public persona was laid bare through animation. But the episode went further than just pointing out this irony. In one scene, the cartoon version of Meghan's character has her head sliced open to reveal that it's completely empty inside. The visual metaphor was brutal and unambiguous. What made the South Park episode particularly relevant was that it drew directly from real content that Meghan had posted online. She had shared a video of herself 9 months pregnant, dancing and moving energetically in what appeared to be a hospital room, with Harry visible in the background looking somewhat uncomfortable. The video struck many viewers as unusual, and it sparked immediate discussion online about whether the pregnancy was being presented authentically. The South Park writers took these existing suspicions and turned them into animated comedy. In their version, the cartoon Meghan is shown dancing in a delivery room when suddenly her baby bump falls off and hits the floor, revealing it to be nothing more than a pillow. The implication was clear, and the internet response was immediate and overwhelming. Social media platforms flooded with reactions, memes, and discussions about what the episode was suggesting. The episode included other pointed moments as well. When the cartoon character's profile appears in a police database, it lists her as a sorority girl, actress, influencer, and victim. Those 4 words, presented as official descriptors, captured what many critics had been saying about how Meghan positioned herself publicly. The South Park team had managed to distill complex criticisms into a simple, memorable format that resonated with millions of viewers. Meghan's team reportedly attempted to have the episode pulled or stopped from airing, but South Park proceeded anyway. The show has a long history of satirizing public figures and current events, and they've previously done episodes about the royal family, including the wedding of Prince Harry, William and Catherine. The legal protections around satire meant that there was little recourse available. even if the portrayal was unflattering. The cultural impact of the South Park episode extended far beyond the initial broadcast. References to the worldwide privacy tour became instant shorthand in online discussions. People created their own versions and reenactments on platforms like TikTok. The phrase "respect our privacy" became a meme used to mock anyone perceived as seeking attention while claiming to want the opposite. Entertainment industry insiders took notice as well, with one studio executive reportedly telling Variety that no one wanted to associate their brand with that kind of public circus. What Tom Bower recognized and what makes his new book so potentially devastating is that South Park didn't create these criticisms out of nothing. The show simply animated and amplified doubts and questions that already existed in the public consciousness. The pregnancy video, the constant media appearances combined with claims of wanting privacy, the focus on personal narrative over substantive content. All of these elements were already being discussed before South Park made them impossible to ignore. Bower has built his career on documenting patterns of behavior and backing up his claims with solid evidence and source testimony. His first book on Meghan and Harry was never successfully challenged in court despite the involvement of lawyers, because Bower is meticulous about his research. He doesn't rely on speculation or rumor. He builds cases with documents, interviews, and verifiable facts. In interviews following his announcement of the second book, Bower has indicated that he already has substantial new material and that there's significant public appetite for fresh insights into what has happened since his first book was published. The investigative journalist has also suggested that people who were reluctant to speak before are now more willing to share their experiences and observations. The change in the couple's public standing has apparently made sources more comfortable coming forward. The significance of South Park's involvement in this story cannot be overstated. The animated show has a massive global audience and a reputation for being culturally influential. When South Park takes on a public figure, it often marks a shift in how that person is perceived by the mainstream public. The fact that the episode about Meghan and Harry became one of their most talked about and shared episodes suggests that it tapped into something real in the cultural conversation. Bower's documentation of this period will likely explore not just what South Park said, but why it resonated so strongly. The episode worked because it expressed what many people were already thinking, but perhaps hadn't articulated so directly. It turned subtext into text, making explicit the contradictions that had been quietly bothering observers of the Sussex story. Though, timing of Bower's second book is crucial. He's not documenting a couple at the height of their influence and popularity. He's examining what happened after the fall, after the deals ended, after the public goodwill evaporated. This isn't just a follow-up to his first book. It's an investigation into how predictions about their trajectory have played out in reality. And from what Bower has indicated, those predictions have proven remarkably accurate, perhaps even more so than he initially expected. The story of American Riviera Orchard represents one of the most significant business failures that Tom Bower will be documenting in his upcoming book. In April 2024, Meghan launched this lifestyle brand with considerable fanfare and media attention. The name itself was meant to evoke the elegance and sophistication of the California coastal region where she and Harry had made their home. The brand was positioned as a premium lifestyle offering, focusing initially on artisanal food products, particularly preserves and jams. Almost immediately after the launch, stories began appearing in major publications claiming that Meghan's products had sold out within hours. Harper's Bazaar, a prestigious fashion and lifestyle magazine, ran with headlines declaring the overwhelming success of the brand. The narrative being pushed was that demand had far exceeded supply, with eager customers snapping up every available item as soon as they became accessible for purchase. This is a common marketing tactic in the luxury goods space, creating an impression of exclusivity and high demand that can drive further interest and justify premium pricing. However, the reality behind these headlines tells a very different story, and it's one that Tom Bower has apparently investigated thoroughly. An observant Reddit user discovered a technical glitch on the American Riviera Orchard website that revealed information Meghan's team almost certainly did not intend to make public. By attempting to add extremely large quantity of items to the shopping cart, specifically 100,000 units, the website's inventory system displayed the actual stock levels across all product lines. The numbers that emerged from this discovery were staggering and painted a picture completely at odds with the success story being promoted through friendly media outlets. According to the data revealed by this glitch, American Riviera Orchard was sitting on approximately $23 million worth of unsold product. For a brand that had supposedly sold out and was struggling to keep up with demand, this represented a catastrophic overstock situation. Breaking down the inventory numbers makes the situation even more clear. The company had 137,000 boxes of fruit spreads in storage. These weren't just jars of jam, but complete presentation boxes that Meghan had apparently envisioned as keepsake items that customers would want to retain long after consuming the product itself. The idea seemed to be that the packaging would be so beautiful and meaningful that it would justify the premium price point and become a cherished item in its own right. Customer feedback suggested otherwise, with buyers describing the boxes as ordinary and the keepsake concept as impractical and unnecessary. The fruit spreads themselves represented roughly $6 million in inventory value. Sales data suggested that in a 24-hour period, only 26 jars had actually sold. Industry analysts who have looked at these numbers have calculated that at that rate of sale, it would take approximately 9 years to clear the existing inventory. This presents an obvious problem for any food product business, but it's particularly acute for preserves and spreads that have expiration dates. The reality is that a significant portion of this inventory will likely expire long before it can be sold, potentially ending up as waste. The Harper's Bazaar situation is particularly interesting because it reveals how the initial success narrative was constructed. According to sources that Bauer has apparently consulted, Meghan only had a few hundred units available at the actual launch. This was a deliberate strategy to create artificial scarcity. By severely understocking the initial offering, the brand could legitimately claim that products sold out quickly, generating headlines about overwhelming demand. These headlines could then be used to justify ordering massive quantities of inventory, which is exactly what happened. Following the Harper's Bazaar coverage that proclaimed her success, Meghan apparently ordered 150,000 units. This decision appears to have been based on the manufactured hype rather than any actual evidence of sustainable demand. The result was a textbook example of how not to manage inventory for a new consumer brand. She had used favorable press coverage to convince herself, and possibly investors, or manufacturers, that demand existed at a scale that reality has not supported. Tom Bauer's investigation into this debacle will apparently show how Meghan essentially scammed the press into promoting a false narrative, which then backfired spectacularly on her own business. The magazine editors and journalists who ran the sold-out stories were, whether knowingly or unknowingly, participants in a marketing strategy that ultimately contributed to a massive business failure. The irony is that in trying to create the appearance of success, Meghan set herself up for a very real and very public failure. The Netflix connection adds another dimension to this story. Meghan's cooking and lifestyle show, With Love Meghan, was supposed to drive sales and interest in American Riviera Orchard. The business strategy appeared to be that the Netflix series would showcase her lifestyle brand, demonstrating how the products fit into an aspirational way of living. Viewers would watch the show, become inspired by what they saw, and then purchase products from the brand. It's a model that has worked for other lifestyle influencers and celebrity entrepreneurs. However, the show itself failed to generate the kind of viewership and engagement that would make this strategy viable. Critics pointed out that the content often seemed more focused on Meghan herself than on the actual cooking, entertaining, or lifestyle elements that were supposedly the point of the program. The production values were high, but the substance seemed thin to many viewers. A subsequent holiday special that was meant to boost interest barely registered in viewership numbers or cultural conversation. The connection between the failed content and the failed business is something that Tom Bauer is apparently tracking carefully. By tying her commercial brand so closely to media content that audiences didn't embrace, Meghan created a situation where both enterprises dragged each other down. The show didn't drive product sales because people weren't watching, and the products didn't generate excitement for the show because they weren't seen as desirable or unique in a crowded marketplace. The cookbook situation adds yet another layer of potential legal and reputational problems. Reports have emerged that Meghan is planning to release a cookbook featuring recipes from her Netflix series, intended to further expand the American Riviera Orchard brand. However, eagle-eyed observers have noted that several of the recipes featured in her show appear to have been taken from other sources without proper attribution. Specifically, comparisons have been made to recipes from Martha Stewart, Joanna Gaines, and various Pinterest posts. Martha Stewart, a businesswoman who built a massive empire on lifestyle content, is reportedly unhappy about what she sees as theft of her intellectual property. The one-pot pasta recipe has been specifically mentioned as an example of content that appears in both Stewart's work and Meghan's show with suspicious similarity. If Meghan proceeds to publish a cookbook containing recipes that other creators can demonstrate they developed first, she could face legal challenges. Tom Bower is apparently prepared to document any lawsuits that may emerge from this situation. The overall picture that emerges from examining American Riviera Orchard is one of a brand launched with more attention to image than to sound business fundamentals. The focus seemed to be on generating impressive headlines rather than building a sustainable business model. The severe overstock situation suggests poor market research and unrealistic expectations about consumer demand. The reliance on friendly media coverage rather than organic customer interest created a bubble that burst when confronted with actual sales data. Industry insiders have suggested that the entire venture demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of how lifestyle brands actually work. Success in this space typically requires authenticity, a clear value proposition, and a genuine connection with the target audience. It also requires understanding production, distribution, and inventory management at a practical level. Simply being a famous person with media connections is not sufficient to overcome poor execution and lack of business acumen. Tom Bower's documentation of this failure will likely serve as a case study in how not to launch a celebrity lifestyle brand. He has access to the website data showing the actual inventory numbers. He can track the timeline of media coverage versus actual sales. He can interview industry experts who can explain why the strategy was flawed from the beginning, and he can place this failure in the larger context of a pattern of ventures that have promised much and delivered little. The American Riviera Orchard disaster is not just about jam that didn't sell. It's about credibility destroyed, money wasted, and the growing realization within the entertainment and business communities that Meghan's projects are high risk and low reward. No brand wants to be associated with failure, and the very public nature of this collapse has made it even more difficult for her to launch future ventures or find partners willing to invest in her ideas. The Archwell Foundation represents perhaps the most serious area of investigation that Tom Bower will tackle in his upcoming book. While failed business ventures and media projects can damage reputations, questions about charitable organizations involve legal and ethical dimensions that carry far more weight. The foundation that Meghan and Harry established as the centerpiece of their post-royal life has become the subject of scrutiny from multiple directions, and the financial documents that have emerged paint a troubling picture. In late 2024, the state of California officially declared the Archwell Foundation delinquent. This designation is not a minor administrative matter. It means that the organization is not in good standing as a registered charity and is not permitted to engage in the activities that charitable organizations exist to perform, specifically raising and spending money for charitable purposes. For an organization that positions itself as a vehicle for positive change in the world, this status represents a fundamental failure to meet basic legal requirements. The situation became more complex when reports emerged that the foundation had failed to file proper tax documentation for 3 consecutive years. In the United States, charitable organizations are required to file detailed annual reports with the Internal Revenue Service using a form called the 990. These forms provide transparency about how charitable organizations receive and spend money, ensuring that entities claiming tax-exempt status are actually operating for charitable purposes rather than private benefit. The apparent failure to file these documents on time raised immediate questions about what was happening inside the organization. When the 2024 tax forms for Archwell finally became available, the numbers revealed a financial situation that appeared deeply problematic. The foundation reported total expenses of $5.1 million for the year. At the same time, donations and grants received by the foundation totaled only $2.1 million. This represents a deficit of $3 million, meaning the organization spent far more than it took in. For any organization, operating at a loss of this magnitude is concerning. For a charitable foundation, it raises questions about sustainability and purpose. Breaking down where the money went provides even more cause for concern. Salaries for 2024 were listed at $913,000. This might seem reasonable until you consider that the foundation at that point employed only 2 staff members. Simple mathematics indicates that each staff member was receiving compensation of nearly half a $1 million annually. While non-profit executives can and do receive substantial salaries, particularly at large established organizations, these figures are extremely high for a small foundation with limited activities and declining revenue. The expense category listed as other expenses totaled $2.9 million. This vague designation can cover many things, but investigators and journalists who have examined the Foundation's operations have suggested that this likely includes security costs, which for Harry and Meghan are reportedly around $2 million annually, as well as private travel, luxury accommodations, and other lifestyle expenses. The concern is that charitable foundation funds are being used to support the personal lifestyle of the founders rather than being directed primarily toward charitable activities. When examining what the foundation actually gave away to charitable causes, the numbers become even more striking. In 2024, Archwell distributed $1.25 million in grants. This means that out of $5.1 million in total expenses, less than a quarter actually went to charitable purposes. The remaining approximately $4 million was consumed by salaries, security, travel, and other overhead. For comparison, most well-regarded charitable organizations aim to spend at least 70 to 80% of their budgets on actual program activities rather than administrative costs. The year-over-year trends are equally concerning. Donations to the foundation dropped by 60% from the previous year, falling from $5.3 million in 2023 to $2.1 million in 2024. This dramatic decline suggests that donors who had previously supported the organization either no longer believe in its mission or have become concerned about how their contributions are being used. Total expenses, meanwhile, increased by 54% year over year, rising from $3.3 million. The organization was simultaneously bringing in less money and spending more, a trajectory that cannot be sustained. The staffing situation at Archwell has also drawn attention. The foundation began with a team of 5 people, but has since been reduced to just 2. James Holt, who served as executive director and was described by some as the couple's chief propagandist, departed and returned to the United Kingdom. His exit was seen as particularly significant given his role in shaping the organization's public messaging. Meredith Maines, another key staff member, resigned shortly after being put in the position of making a false public statement on behalf of the organization. The Maines' resignation is worth examining in detail because it illustrates the kind of ethical dilemmas that apparently arose within the organization. She had claimed publicly that Meghan and Harry had filled out a special form before attending a high-profile party, requesting that no photographs be taken of them. This was presented as evidence of their desire for privacy and their careful approach to public appearances. However, investigation revealed that no such form existed. Maines had apparently been directed to make this claim despite it being false. Her resignation shortly afterwards suggested she was unwilling to continue in a role that required her to misrepresent facts to the public. The rebranding of the foundation to Archwell Philanthropies occurred at a time when scrutiny of its operations was intensifying. The timing struck many observers as suspicious. The new structure involves what is called a fiscal sponsorship model, which allows the organization to operate under the umbrella of another established charity. This arrangement can provide administrative support and reduce overhead, but it also has the effect of making the financial details less transparent and harder for the public to examine directly. Tom Bower has apparently uncovered information about the foundation's funding, sources that raises additional questions. In 2021, Archwell received $13 million, an enormous sum for a newly established foundation. Sources that Bower has consulted suggest that this money came from the United States Agency for International Development, meaning it was taxpayer money. If accurate, this would mean that American citizens were funding the foundation through their taxes. The allegation that has been made is that this government money was then funneled to political organizations rather than to legitimate charitable causes, which would represent a serious misuse of public funds. What makes this particularly significant is what happened when that government funding apparently ceased. In 2024, when the $13 million infusion was no longer available, donations to the foundation collapsed. This suggests that the organization was heavily, perhaps entirely, dependent on government money rather than on support from individual donors or private foundations. The inability to maintain funding levels without government support indicates that the foundation had not built a sustainable donor base or demonstrated sufficient value to attract private charitable giving. The Internal Revenue Service investigation that is apparently underway represents the most serious threat. The IRS has broad authority to examine tax-exempt organizations and can revoke their charitable status if they find that the organization is not operating primarily for charitable purposes or is providing excessive private benefits to individuals. Given the financial profile that has emerged from the available documents, with high overhead costs, substantial salaries, relatively small charitable distributions, and questions about the use of funds, the foundation would seem to be at risk of losing its tax-exempt status. Tom Bower's investigation into Archwell will likely be the most carefully documented section of his book because the legal and financial implications are so serious. He has access to the tax forms that were eventually filed, showing the actual numbers. He can interview charity watchdog organizations and non-profit experts who can explain why the financial structure appears problematic. He can track the timeline of the California Delinquency Declaration and the IRS investigation. And he can speak with former staff members who witnessed the internal operations firsthand. The questions that Bower will apparently address go to the heart of what Archwell actually is. Is it genuinely a charitable foundation working to make positive change in the world? Or is it primarily a vehicle for funding Meghan and Harry's lifestyle while providing tax benefits and a veneer of philanthropic activity? The financial documents suggest an organization where the interests of the founders take clear priority over charitable mission. The declining donations indicate that others who have examined the foundation have reached similar conclusions and decided to direct their charitable giving elsewhere. For Meghan and Harry, the Archwell situation is potentially far more damaging than failed business ventures or poor media reviews. Questions about how charitable funds are used can lead to legal consequences, not just reputational damage. If the IRS determines that the foundation has been operating improperly, there can be substantial fines, and in extreme cases, even criminal charges for those who knowingly misuse charitable assets. Even if matters never reach that level, the public documentation of how little of the foundation's money actually goes to charitable work, compared to how much supports their personal expenses, will be difficult to defend or explain away. Tom Bower's investigation into Meghan's life before she met Prince Harry represents some of the most sensitive and potentially explosive material in his upcoming book. While her post-royal ventures and the Archwell Foundation can be examined through public documents and financial Sussexes records, questions about how she funded her lifestyle during her years as a working actress require different investigative approaches. Bower has spent years looking into this period, and he has indicated that there are aspects of her past that raise significant questions. Central to this investigation is Soho House, the exclusive private members club that has locations in major cities around the world. Soho House is known for its extremely selective membership, catering to creative professionals, celebrities, and wealthy individuals who value privacy and exclusivity. Membership is not simply a matter of being able to afford the fees. Applicants must be invited and approved, and the organization carefully cultivates a specific atmosphere and clientele at each of its locations. Meghan's connection to Soho House has been documented in various ways, including by Harry himself in his memoir Spare, where he referred to one of the London locations as her headquarters. This is a significant description because it suggests she had regular, unlimited access to the facilities. For someone who was at that time a relatively minor actress working on a cable television show, this level of access to such an exclusive establishment raises questions about how it was arranged and maintained. Tom Bower has focused considerable attention on Marcus Anderson, who worked as Soho House's global membership director. Anderson's role was to expand the brand into new cities by identifying and recruiting the most influential and desirable people in each location to become founding members. This was not a position that involved serving random customers or processing membership applications. It required social intelligence, connections, and the ability to move in elite circles. Anderson started his career at Soho House London as a waiter, but rose through the organisation to this influential position. What Bower has documented is that Anderson's movements appeared to track with Meghan's own relocations. When she was in Los Angeles, Anderson was there. When she moved to New York, he appeared there as well. When she went to Toronto for filming, Anderson was in Toronto. When she came to London and eventually to California, the pattern continued. For two people who claim to be merely friends through a social club, this level of coordinated geography seems unusual and has prompted questions about the exact nature of their relationship and what it involves. Anderson was not just a peripheral figure in Meghan's life. He attended her wedding to Harry as an honoured guest, suggesting a level of closeness that goes well beyond a professional acquaintance or casual friendship. The question that investigators and journalists have asked is what Anderson's role actually was in facilitating Meghan's lifestyle during the years before she had the income to support it on her own. Her salary from the television show Suits has been estimated at approximately $50,000 per episode. During the later seasons, which is substantial but not enough to explain designer wardrobes, international travel, luxury accommodations, and constant presence at high-profile events. Bauer has investigated allegations that have circulated for years about Meghan's involvement in what is sometimes euphemistically called yachting. This term refers to young women who accompany wealthy men on yachts and to exclusive events, receiving financial support and gifts in exchange. The practice exists in a grey area between dating and something more transactional. Some of the allegations suggest that Meghan was involved in this world and that Marcus Anderson may have facilitated these connections. There have been claims that photographs exist showing Meghan at exclusive Soho House events and on yachts with wealthy older men during the years before she met Harry. Some of these photos have allegedly been shown on television programs, most notably by journalist Piers Morgan. What Tom Bauer has noted as particularly significant is the response, or rather the lack of response, from Meghan's legal team to these allegations and images. Meghan has demonstrated a willingness to pursue legal action when she believes her reputation has been damaged. She sued a British newspaper over the publication of a letter she had written to her father, a case she eventually won. She has complained formally about media coverage she considered unfair or inaccurate. Her lawyers have sent letters and made public statements addressing various claims about her. Yet when it comes to the specific allegations about yachting and the photographs that allegedly show her in compromising situations, there has been notable silence. For an investigative journalist like Tom Bauer, silence can be as informative as a statement. If the photographs and allegations were completely false and defamatory, one would expect vigorous legal action. The fact that such action has not materialized suggests to Bauer that there may be truth to the claims, or at least that Meghan's team believes they cannot successfully challenge them in court. Bauer is asking the fundamental questions about where the money came from to support a lifestyle that her documented income does not appear to cover. The Suits salary is a matter of public record to some extent, and while it was decent compensation for a supporting role on a cable drama, it was not the kind of money that explains private jets, designer clothes worn once and discarded, attendance at exclusive events around the world, and the ability to maintain multiple residences. Bauer has noted that Meghan's own account of her financial situation during these years has changed over time, with different versions emphasizing different sources of income and support. These inconsistencies are exactly the kind of thing that an investigative biographer looks for because they suggest areas where the official story may not align with reality. What makes Bauer's upcoming book potentially more revealing than his first is that more people are apparently willing to talk now. In interviews following the announcement of his second book, Bauer has stated that sources who were reluctant to speak previously are now more forthcoming. The shift in Meghan and Harry's public standing has apparently made former associates, employees, and observers feel more comfortable sharing what they know. When the couple was still seen as sympathetic figures who had been mistreated by the institution of the monarchy, there was social and professional risk in criticizing them. Now that public opinion has shifted and their ventures have failed, that protective barrier has weakened. Non-disclosure agreements that staff members signed when working for Meghan and Harry have time limits. As these agreements expire, the legal constraints that prevent people from speaking publicly about their experiences are lifted. Tom Bauer has indicated that he is actively interviewing former staff, members who are now free to share their observations. Given the allegations of bullying that emerged during Meghan's time as a working royal, and the high turnover rate among staff at Archwell and other ventures, there are potentially many people with unflattering stories to tell. The characterization of Meghan as a dictator in high heels by some Hollywood insiders suggests a management style that creates loyalty through fear rather than respect. People who worked under such conditions and then left, whether voluntarily or otherwise, often have detailed knowledge of how the organization actually functioned behind the carefully managed public image. They know what was said in private versus what was presented to the media. They witnessed the decision-making processes and the treatment of subordinates, and when they are no longer bound by legal agreements or fear of retaliation, some of them will talk. Tom Bower's credibility as an investigative biographer is built on a foundation of never having been successfully sued for the claims he makes in his books. This is a remarkable achievement, given that he has written about powerful, wealthy individuals who have every incentive to challenge anything false or defamatory. The reason Bower has maintained this record is that he is extraordinarily careful about verification and documentation. He does not publish allegations based on a single anonymous source. He requires documentation, multiple sources, and evidence that would hold up under legal scrutiny. This approach means that when Bower says he has material on Meghan's past, it is not idle speculation or gossip. He has gone through the process of verifying claims, documenting patterns, and building a case that can withstand challenge. His publishers have legal teams that review his manuscripts precisely because they know the subjects of his books have the resources to sue if given any legitimate grounds. The fact that Revenge was never successfully challenged legally, despite Meghan having excellent lawyers and clear motivation to suppress damaging claims, speaks to the care with which Bower conducts his investigations. The first book that Bower published about Meghan and Harry made a series of predictions about how their post-royal life would unfold. He predicted that their commercial ventures would struggle because they had misunderstood what made them valuable in the first place. He suggested that Hollywood would eventually tire of them because they brought more drama than value. He indicated that their credibility would erode as the gap between their stated values and their actual behavior became more apparent. Looking at where things stand now, Bower's predictions have proven remarkably accurate. This track record of accurate analysis strengthens Bower's position as he prepares to release his second book. He was right before, which means readers and the media will take his new claims seriously. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry's credibility has diminished significantly. They have made statements and claims that have been contradicted by evidence. They have launched ventures that failed despite bold predictions of success. They have alienated former supporters and burned bridges with institutions and individuals who initially tried to help them. The polling data shows the dramatic decline in their popularity. In the United Kingdom, Meghan's favourability rating has dropped from 55% in 2019, shortly after her marriage, to approximately 20% currently. That represents a net decline of 35 percentage points, putting her among the least popular members of the royal family in public opinion. In the United States, while she retains somewhat more support, even American audiences have shown signs of fatigue with the constant focus on grievance and victimhood. What Tom Bower's book will ultimately provide is a comprehensive account that connects all the threads. The business failures are not isolated incidents, but part of a pattern of poor judgment and unrealistic expectations. The charity problems are not mere administrative oversights, but potential evidence of using non-profit status for personal benefit. The questions about her pre-Harry past are not tabloid speculation, but legitimate inquiries into unexplained aspects of her financial history. And the staff turnover is not coincidental, but reflects a management approach that people find intolerable. Bower has spent years building these cases because that is how investigative biography works. It requires patience, careful documentation, cultivation of sources, and verification of claims. The result is a book that subjects cannot easily dismiss or discredit because it is built on facts rather than speculation. They cannot sue successfully because Bower has ensured that everything he publishes can be defended in court. They cannot intimidate him into silence because he has faced legal threats before and knows how to navigate them. The timing of the book's release in early 2026 means it will arrive when Meghan and Harry are at their weakest point. Their deals have mostly ended or failed to be renewed. Their business ventures have collapsed. Their charity is under investigation. Their staff has largely departed. They are more isolated now than at any point since leaving the royal family. This is when Tom Bower's investigation will be most devastating because there are fewer defenders and less goodwill to absorb the impact. Tom Bower has made clear that his investigation continues to evolve as new information becomes available. He is actively working on the book, conducting interviews, reviewing documents, and building the narrative that will explain how someone who married into one of the world's most famous families ended up in such a diminished position just a few years later. The book will answer questions about what happened at Soho House, who paid for her lifestyle before Harry, why every business venture has failed, what former staff members are finally saying, and how a charity supposedly dedicated to good works became the subject of government investigations. For Meghan and Harry, there is no effective defense against the kind of investigation that Tom Bower conducts. They cannot prevent publication. They cannot sue over documented facts. They cannot intimidate sources who are no longer dependent on them or bound by legal agreements. All they can do is wait for the book to arrive and deal with whatever revelations it contains. And based on what Bower has indicated in interviews, those revelations will be substantial enough to further damage reputations that are already severely compromised.